To call the December meeting of Board of Police Commission to order. We'll start out with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Appreciate the flexibility of changing venue, and we can blame it on the toy food drive czar over there that is basically will have every public building in Madison at some point filled with toys. Anyway, so we also have some time constraints in terms of the availability of this meeting. So, we will step lively to get through agenda because we also have to incorporate an executive session for some discussions. First of all, prior to the meeting, Chief, I think we should acknowledge your planning and the promotion to captain of Lieutenant Jeremy York. I think it was, obviously it was something this commission had been considering for a period of time. I think the formal promotion of him is really is an important step in expanding the capacity of the already superb leadership team that you're putting together here. So it was a timely, I think, and well-deserved promotion. We're delighted to see some members of the department and other people in the department were able to attend, as well as his family. So, thank you for allowing the commission to participate in that event.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The first order of business is a motion to accept our November minutes as written.
Motion to accept November as written.
Second. Any changes, additions, any successful search for typos at all in the meeting? Motion to accept the minutes as written. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Chief, you'll turn it.
Good evening, everybody. We'll start with the financials, the budget. You should have received your packets. Any questions, comments, observation? The budget up to December is we're operating pretty much where we should be, with the exception, obviously, of the backfilling of labor. We do have two gentlemen that will be exiting the academy, graduating in March. We also have to move forward and hire two more to replace the retirement of Officer Sudak and the resignation of Officer De Palma, and also the one position the town approved for January 1st of 2025.
I think the budget is pretty straightforward. The only thing I would suggest, Chief, is for our January meeting, we'll have 6 months into the year. We'll be well into the, at least, evaluation cycle for the 25-26 budget. So maybe at the January meeting, we can do a little deeper dive into the budget, see if there's anything that you think might drift off track between the last 6 months of the year. And at that point, I think we'll also really likely be in some serious budget discussions with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance.
That's the week of the 18th, I believe, and I will certainly beseech you to participate in that meeting that we have at the budget, at a regular meeting in January. I'm going to go over some of what I see as, some of the contractuals are going up.
Okay.
The production of the cars has gone up tremendously. That means the repairs of the cars are also going to go up. Some of our agreements that we have, the regional agreements, they're going up very little. And I think I talked, like the animal control, the shelter that we we share. There's some work that has to be done on that improvement. We're trying to get that cost analysis before the January meeting. I am still gonna ask for the position for July 1st. And I know there was somewhat of a promise to look into it, but I believe it's predicated on a need, it's not a wish.
Let me just speak to that for a minute, because we recognized early on asking for headcount in any business is expensive, because you carry with it the medical expense, the pension expense, certain liabilities. And so it is not without some caution and without some serious reflection before we ask for it. On the other hand, we think we made a compelling case last year for the second officer. The Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen deferred that, even though they passed a pledge to do it July the 1st, which is of the 25-26 budget year. But, you know, the chief has shared with us, you know, the rationale for moving forward with that position request. That rationale has not changed. There's been no dilution of it. The environment didn't change. The population hasn't dropped off. So it is something that we may consider some steps to reinforce the partnership of the Board of Police Commission with the police department to propel this request forward. It is not just the position we ask for every year. It has not been that, but this year in particular, given the fact that we thought we had a significant amount of community support, we still think that community support is there for an additional position. And so it is something we as a commission may think of, what is the level of demonstrable support that we may need to convey to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. You know, we can talk about that, you know, a little more as we head through the January discussions. So.
Sure, can I add to that briefly?
Pardon?
May I add to that briefly?
Absolutely.
And listen, we're still, I think when people think that we're not facing real life issues when it comes to safety of our citizens and security, I mean, let me leave you with this, and not that I have you folks know. Cars stolen here, and by the way, some of them are down. The cameras are working like a gem. The officers, when they get a hit, are responding to the area. We try not to engage something dangerous with them, but they know, and they see it when they get off the highway. These kids are pretty smart when it comes to that. One of the cars taken the third week of November was involved in a shooting, crash with the Waterbury police. They seized weapons in the car, and weapons from the individual. That person had to come to Madison and get this car. That's what we deal with. So I need people not to forget that we're dealing, just because we're in Madison, and although some said we're the 7th safest now, I guess, and we used to be the 1st, but it's real crime still, and it still goes up. We still have to address it. We still have to provide for the safety of folks. I know there's a lot of challenges to the town right now, projects, things like that, but we still have to provide services to our people. Thank you.
Chief, the cars that have been broken into or stolen in the last couple of months, are they unlocked or locked, or is it the key fob nearby issue?
The majority are unlocked, but what they're getting bold is they're breaking the windows. Some are trying door knobs on houses.
Okay, so the majority are unlocked, but
Yes.
now they're smashing windows.
There's something in it they want, they're gonna try.
These
to
people
do
are
it.
leaving items of value, valuable items
Additionally,
in the
yes.
car.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget?
Chief, the material, are you gonna cover specifically some of this?
I'm sorry, sir?
Are you gonna cover some of this?
Because it turned out, I was gonna say that for the next meeting,
Okay, fine.
but you asked me, but
No.
I want you to read through, you may have
Good
questions,
point.
want me to do additions.
Okay,
Good, good point. We can,
That's what we presented last year when we were asking for the additional officers. We updated it. Thank you, Holly, for the information. But I think that our second week of January, that'll be, so we can focus on how we're gonna present it.
Holly, can I just ask, every once in a while, one of the commissioners will forget to bring this to the next meeting.
So I will bring it.
So if you can bring it to that as well.
We also update for 2024, what we know at least.
Yes.
You know, even if we have to say through November or whatever month we have it through, that would be
It's
helpful.
a good point. Let's project through, even if you don't have the last month, project through what it might be.
Okay, training report? Doug, Captain Harkins?
Okay, for November 2024, officers of Madison Police Department participated in 296 training hours. Training included procedural justice, shoe trailer, interview and interrogation, patrol rifle initial certification, collect NCIC recertification, and SWAT. Each officer completed 2 hours of procedural justice training on our online platform. And the shoe trailer training, each officer completed 2 hours of shoe trailer training, which involves live fire scenario training. Sergeant Roy and Officer Strickland were the use of force instructors for this training. Interview and interrogation training, Officer LaChance attended a 3-day interview and interrogation training session through the Spectre Criminal Justice Training Network. This training was held at the Enfield Police Department. And patrol rifle initial certification training, Sergeant Roy and Officer Strickland instructed 8 officers in a patrol rifle initial certification training. Upon completion, these officers are certified to utilize patrol rifles for critical incidents. Collect NCIC recertification, 4 officers completed their Collect NCIC recertification online. This training needs to be completed annually to hold certification. And lastly, SWAT training, Sergeant Roy attended a mandatory 2 days of monthly regional SWAT team training.
Excuse me, Captain, you mentioned the shoot training trailer.
Yes.
I'm sort of a fan of saying, if you're gonna participate in something that has some degree of measurement to it, then who's the best? Who's the best 3? So if everyone in the department participated, do we track, where we can say, out of the 25 officers this year, here were the 3 or the 5 who scored the highest?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I'm not asking you who they were, but the idea that we create an environment where, hey, it's not just give it a try, it's you're being evaluated, among other things, on how you're doing against your peer group who are going through the same test, under the same circumstances. And by the way, if you, for whatever reason, are in the bottom 20% of the training program in these 3 programs, maybe a captain or a lieutenant is going to talk with you and say, you need to work on your concentration or your technique or go for extra training, because at some point your score is going to be translated into a real life event, and the fact that you can't seem to get this firearm thing right is important.
I agree. Just to shed some light on that particular training, there's it's a tractor or trailer, if you will, that's outfitted so that we can fire inside. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but inside they have a shoot, don't shoot scenarios. There are 2 officers that are up at the same time, and they present a shoot, don't shoot situation. And I've done it myself, and you know, it gets the officers, you know, it's a high stress situation, if you will, or considering the situation that you're in. And after each scenario, the instructors, Officer Strickland and Sergeant Roy, will after everyone, they review why you did what you did, or why didn't you do something. And so so if there's 10 scenarios, you're getting instructed on each 10, and then at the end of it, you now qualify as if we were at the outdoor range in Clinton, okay? You're able to qualify inside that trailer as well, and they can turn out the lights and have a night fire shoot as well, so you're accustomed to firing a weapon at, under, when it's dark out. It really is it's a good training. We do it every year, and so it's very effective, I think.
I mean, that's
Sure.
there's a minimal acceptable level for performance for all aspects of the range, that meaning night firing, daytime range, long rifle, shotgun. And it's set by the post council. And to give you a reference point, out of 60 rounds that are fired from 25 yards down to close quarter battle at 3 and 5, you could only miss 4. And even if they're on the line, they're still on the target. It's 4. And there's remedial. So they work hard to do this, to get them through this. And they've been very successful.
Well, yeah, I think it's great. On the other hand, it's, they're marksmen, and then you're qualified as an expert marksman. And I think the idea that says, we don't just keep track of this, we keep track of it, and you have a responsibility to do well, and if you don't do well, somebody's gonna talk to you about it. And anyway, I think, I think the idea that I think you've brought and we've reinforced as a commission is we're gonna out-train a lot of departments in the Northeast. We are simply going to have a better trained group of whatever we might end up with, 30 officers. And that's, that's our advantage.
A little side note, you might recall from approximately 3 years ago, we had the classes were completed, we still had the trailer per day. So we invited the leadership from the state capitol down. And from the speaker down to the Senator Pro Tem and others. And we also had the folks from IMRP and Public Policy at UConn, Racial Profiling Prohibition Project, and they were overwhelmed that it really taught them a lot of it, what an officer goes through in that stressful situation, and that split-second decision. So,
I recall that I think it was a very, very well-received educational move. It's a great idea.
we'll move on to traffic.
Okay.
Doug?
Okay, for November, there were 28 reported motor vehicle accidents with 7 involving injuries. Leading cause of motor vehicle accidents, volunteer strikes or debris in the roadway, and failure to drive in the established lane. There were 0 driving under the influence accidents and 0 fatal motor vehicle accidents. There were 7 reported private property accidents, and there was 1 assist to the Connecticut State Police accident on I-95.
Thank you, Doug. Recruitment, sir? Okay, well, you folks conducted interviews. The Commissioner Cartledge and our chairman conducted interviews with 2 of the candidates that we were able to glean, I'll use that word. There was less than 40 that took the exam. New Haven did conditionals to 30-something of them, sight unseen. And we were able to speak and from the remaining, come up with 3 possible candidates. We have an additional one that came to us today for the possible January slot. He was in the running to do other departments, but as far as the work on the shoreline, Madison is one of his first choices. So we'll see where that goes, and that will be another interview.
Is there an update on the status of the 2 potential candidates who we interviewed?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is there an update on where are they in the system? Have they done their
Conditional
background?
letters of employment. Conditional letters of employment.
Okay.
Academy slots. There's 3 different academies now. I prefer the New Haven one because I think they run a very, very tight ship there. There are 2 other academies.
So the background investigations have been initiated on both.
Okay,
So we're just in the beginning stages.
so it's moving along.
It is
Yes,
moving
they have
along.
all their appointments are scheduled, physicals, psychological, polygraph.
The potential slots, I thought they were available in Milford.
Yes,
They are, okay.
yes. We've already reserved them.
Okay,
Community calendar? I guess before, Holly, can we maybe talk a little bit to the toy drive and maybe Mr. Stefanowski and some of the, where we've gone with the toy drive and, come on up, don't be
Sure.
bashful.
Yeah, we are starting tomorrow, actually, one family came in today. There'll be 8 families coming in tomorrow, a total of 28 families in total. You're welcome to come over and look at the community room, not while a family is in there, but you can go look at it now. It's pretty well stocked. I'm still receiving gifts, and there's still some things that people are buying for me that I need to get for particular people. But it looks really good, and the mom that came in today just gave me such a big hug because she didn't know what she was gonna do without this. So they really leave with a lot of nice things. It's great.
Well done.
Thank you.
Is there
Thank
any
you for
kind
those
of, how do they sort it out? Is there a limit they can take X number of? How does that play
You know,
out?
we are fortunate in this town to have a lot of generous people, so we get a lot of donations. So I work with the family, it depends on what they want. If you have a 3-year-old boy that wants a truck, you can take a whole bunch of them, because I have a lot of them. If you're a teenage girl that wants a curling iron and you have 3 daughters, you only get to take one, because I can't give you all of them. So it just depends on what the items are. The teenagers, we have less things for, but anyone that wants to play a game or have a stuffed animal or, you know, or color or do a STEM project, and we received a lot of, I asked for it, and we received a lot of Legos this year, which is great for older kids. Some very nice sets.
Thank you.
Holly, how do you find the family, how do the families find you?
I get the names for Madison Youth and Family
Okay.
Services, so they all come from them, and then I contact each family to get a wish list.
Gotcha.
Do you still need some teenage things?
I still need some teenage things, you know, wireless headphones are always very helpful, phone
Those
chargers.
Your things,
Yes.
the earpods, okay, wireless chargers.
Yes, that's probably the biggest, you know, and makeup for girls, nail kits, things of that nature.
Okay. I just want to add to the community calendar, the turkey trot. Even though it was raining, it was flying up to 30 miles an hour plus, and most people pre-registered. It went off basically without a hitch. They had a great turnout in spite of the heavy rain and the winds. The race was a success. They had a lot of folks that contributed, others that didn't still contribute and maybe make the event. So, but it's growing. It's, you know, they're getting some pretty good numbers of people that are participating. Just getting more organized as we go, like that. And so outside of that, the second to that was the weekend parade, Christmas parade. They started at Swans and came down Route 1 and had Santa set up in front of the Allegra, kind of a regular event here in Madison, hay rides. They are going to have one more event, possibly in the winter, kind of like a winter festival type thing. I was talking with the chamber recently, they're trying to figure out the dates, but it'd be a nice thing for those that don't go south and stay north. That's all I have for the community calendar at this point.
okay. Any update on shared services?
I'm sorry, sir?
Any update on shared services?
Well, we did meet, I met with we had our annual meetings with the regional response team, the regional traffic units. Also, we did have a meeting with the town of Clinton, because we share animal control with them. We share the marine division with them. We contribute when they purchased their vessel 6 years ago. They also do the responses for us, along with the state police and the fire department. We also share with them the range, which is going to have some upfitting also. I'm still waiting for those dollar amounts, because I have to add that for the new budget year coming up. We did have the discussion, I'm going to jump to, I had a discussion with Peggy, first select one, about are we okay to start the discussion on possibly dispatch? You know, I know we've talked briefly about 6 months ago with some of the fire chiefs and other stakeholders. Everyone agrees it's worth having a discussion. I'm going to be, at some point, Sam DeBurr is going to reach out and speak with the Valley Shore. We're going to probably have somewhat of a cursory meeting with Clinton. What I need is, and the authority is the Board of Selectmen, to start that process, have a discussion with the town manager and the town fathers in Clinton. So that's because technically the dispatch is under the Board of Selectmen. So we'd like to move forward with that. I know we've had discussion in the past. I know there's a lot of emotion attached to it. I think it's worth us looking at it, particularly what the investment is. We recently had our CALIA assessment. They left yesterday. But one of the assessors, who was heads Virginia Beach and used to head Syracuse and has done the regionalization in 4 different locations as an assessor and as a consultant, she explained it. She gave me a lot of good information. I'll talk to the assessment a little bit later, but she gave me a lot of information as to how to get it going. So I'm trying to get the folks that do have the authority to open the door with Clinton so we can sit down somewhat formally or informally and start the dialogue on it. I'm trying to also get an update from DSET, OSET, which is Department of Public Safety, as to what the contributions are, what's the update, what are they paying for the value now. I know they pay the hardware, they pay the T1 lines, they pay the backbone. Some of those are up to $500,000 each. So it would make sense beyond the $250, and I'm sure that might have gone up. That's a lot of money to put in. They're paying essentially, there's two organizations that have joined, Public Safety. You're basically paying for the upkeep and management and hardware upgrades of one. So that is an obvious savings. So anyway, we'll pursue that on behalf of this commission, unless you folks would like me to take another route. But I think that first open discussion and my discussion with Peggy should get going. I know that some of you were inquiring as to where we're going with this.
Well, one of the things, and Al, certainly you have a perspective on this, is at some point, given the chief's perspective, in this commission's perspective over multiple years, at some point, it may be helpful and necessary for us to draft a formal letter, which is unfortunate, but to us to draft a formal letter to see if somehow we can change the priority of the Board of Selectmen to examine it. If we found, if you want to kill a project in a slow, silent way, you agree completely with the goal of the project, and then say, but this is just not the right time. It just isn't the right time. Maybe after the budget. So I'm encouraged that the chief has said enough time has passed that there may be some other receptivity on the part of another town. But, you know, I think at some point, you know, given the perspective of this commission, we really need to say, if not now, when? If not this Board of Selectmen, what Board of Selectmen is going to examine this? And by the way, everyone seems to ignore the fact that we're not asking for the Board of Selectmen to approve anything. We're asking them to explore it. And with that, framed in that way, the Board of Selectmen can say, we've looked at it, it doesn't make any sense, or it doesn't make any sense now. But for God's sakes, put together the right group in a room to look at it. to look at the hard numbers and to look at the advantages. So maybe as a New Year's Eve present to ourselves, you know, we will kind of formalize it. You know, Peggy, I think in my discussions with her, has been very receptive to it. But it's you know, the world interferes. There are busy activities, there's busy events, there's budget issues. But Chief, it's a good reminder, and that maybe we need to, as I said, see where we are in January, draft a letter, see if we can, if we can't get any clearer receptivity to it, see if we can get it on the agenda of the Board of Selectmen with a public meeting to say, you know, talk about it. And, you know, stand up and say why you don't think it makes sense to look at it now. You know, this is not a wild idea that came up. I mean, if someone from Kalia has said, oh yeah, different parts of the country, it's where they're going because it makes such economic sense, it makes such service sense, it makes such continuity sense, you know, but in the land of steady habits, it doesn't make that much sense. So, Chief, thanks for raising it. We'll put it on and take a deep breath in January and say, let's launch or let's not launch.
Once I get the budget submitted, I'm gonna reach out to the state of Connecticut and find out what, and I'll use our two towns, our neighbors to be used as an example, and get the cost that the state of Connecticut charges out for each town. And take that analysis and then take what we spend on communication with the town, Clinton spends on communication, and come up with some sort of you know, analytical sheet that shows you maybe on a spreadsheet showing this is the cost. The assessor, the woman that pointed out to me, she goes, you're not going to save on labor costs, you're not, although they contribute to it. You know what you're going to save on is what it costs you every year to maintain. You're paying for two towns, they pay for two towns. If two towns join, you're paying for one town. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's that, so the T1 line is a T1 line. If it's in two of them, they cost $1,200 a month on average. You know, hardware for all the systems is $500,000. So it's $1 million combined, separately, or it's $500,000 for two combined. Now, that's where you save the money. And if you build a structure, that's where they contribute to building it. And to hire new people, they pay 40% of the initial. So that's where the savings is. You're sharing equipment. Thank you.
Ed, I might suggest that the budget hearings are coming up third week in January, where you're invited into, I think it might be a good opportunity to present it at that time, and then we'll follow it up.
Okay. Well, again, I would be glad to take any avenue or multiple avenues that are open for it. So we'll certainly, you know, give that some thought, because it ultimately is an economic issue. I mean, ultimately,
Yeah, exactly.
it is an economic issue where, you know, no one has even hinted that there's going to be some dilution of service. I mean, there may be some changes in certain protocols, but, you know, that's something that said, hey, departments, organizations, agencies change protocols all the time, not without some thought, not without some justification, but we'll certainly use that as another consideration. Good. Chief, any correspondence?
I don't have any. I have emails, I answer them.
Okay.
You know my style there. I don't want anybody to wait. Traffic issues. Boy, that was, I've been busy with these. We had a meeting with the state yesterday. That was a long and interesting one. We talked to a lot of the projects that are on Route 1. Oh, yeah, I know. And we talked to some of the projects that aren't on Route 1, but they have a correlation to some of the activities in the state of Connecticut. With that, I'll talk to one is when traffic shuts down on I-95, Route 1 becomes a diversionary route. 79 Horse Pond Road, Green Hill Road, become diversionary routes, going east or coming west. You know, there also was a discussion of the ramp at where Wildwood is, Mungertown. That technically was supposed to be a ramp at one point, they're looking to do that for traffic. I can only imagine once that ramp is operational, people will come from out of the east, cross Green Hill, and head on wherever they're going on 95 South. That being said, we talked about the safety because our two new schools are in that area. We talked about sidewalks there, we talked about some of the application of sidewalks in the area, how best to do that, with funding. If you followed the school project, there was a discussion, did they go with a bridge type of thing over wetlands, or did they go with the sidewalks? Whatever it is they decide, obviously we're not gonna put children out into traffic. I know there's buses, but we're talking a 2,000-foot walk, and most people are gonna probably take the walk, and hopefully so, and wanna make sure they're safe. So that means the road's gonna need improvements. I remember I told you they weren't doing studies. I asked that and beseeched them that maybe you might want to do a study on this one. They try to throw us back to CROG, you know, and I understand the grants require that. But I just brought it to their attention that, you know, although this is not a state road per se, you really should look at it because it does impact the quality of life of the town of Madison. I also say that often about Madison. So, we talked about everything on Route 1 that we had going and wished we could have going. We talked about my frustration with getting some things approved. Towards the end of the meeting, I just kind of cut to the chase and went with retirements and people being transferred. You know, I need closure on these issues. It shouldn't take 3 years. It used to take 3 months. I said I went to a meeting with L1, the LT1s on, you know, because they kept throwing it back. Well, legal traffic authorities, and I am legal traffic authority, and I was there on that walkabout with the safety, with 20 engineers from various organizations in the DOT. I said, all these suggestions, a whole host of suggestions on what they'd like to see on Route 1, but there's no funding. They're not gonna do it unless they have a project. That means the town. It's not a mandate, but it's close enough where you want it, you do it, you pay for it. A crosswalk with a set of strobes, you're talking anywhere from $18,000 to $40,000 when you're done. You have to put, and that's without an engineering study. Engineering study has a lot more money to it, which they require to get an encroachment permit to put that little ramp, I call ramp to nowhere. You know, they just put them at Ham and Acid at the bottom of the connector. They put a crosswalk, and they put, it's about 3 feet by 8 feet, piece of concrete that goes, I would appreciate if they had done that maybe on Scotland Avenue, or maybe by West Fork or East Fork. So that was the frustration. It started going that way. I was trying not to embarrass the town of Madison, and I asked Peggy, I said, I didn't embarrass us. She said no. But they had everybody on from the deputy commissioner. And bureaucracy makes it very difficult. We're happy to do all these things on our own. We need the money to pay for it because it's your road. And then I informed them, I said, by the way, there was a complaint to the Attorney General's office about Route 1 and ADA. And I called them and said, you realize that's Route 1 that the person who made the complaint's about. Today, again, we crossed the gentleman who's vision impaired. Send the cruiser, and when we're available to help him, we're happy to do that. We did a walk with him. Peggy did with us. We walked all downtown and found a lot of the areas. It's a real problem, and it's not going to go away. We can't kick it down the road. I know there's some grant monies in there that's going to accomplish it. We brought up the downtown project, talked about the mid-island crosswalk, mid-intersection crosswalk. We talked about roundabouts. This is great, but we have to move forward on this stuff. My grandpa used to say, the shovel will move by itself. So we need to move the shovel. So they're going to have somebody get in touch with me to somewhat facilitate this. They try to say, well, you're supposed to respond back to our study. I said, yes. Who's paying for it? Here's my response. It's official. You know, we agree with everything. Who's paying for it? That's a lot of money to move an intersection, to make it straight. And with all the building projects going on, we know of 251 domiciles. They may be in an apartment house, but there's 60 some odd people in a set of buildings. Mm-hmm. That's gonna build out both east and west part of town. That's gonna be additional crosswalks, bus stops, you name it, calls for service, you know, medics, all that. So that's where we're at with that. That's the update, and I just want to make sure you folks are aware of that.
Okay.
All right. The other is CALIA. They secured this morning the last assessor on the plane at Bradley Field, Jeremy did. My exit with them was about 2 hours each. They went over, they're very thorough. But they said from the beginning, as I said in the end, the team has done a phenomenal job. And there's not many smaller agencies that have dual accreditation, that have an accredited dispatch center, but the woman was she's been at it a long time. She said it really was I was proud to see this. And suggestions were additional training for Katie. They thought Katie put in that position and what she's done. Jeremy in that position, what she's done. Doug's input and even, well, certainly with the budget. Holly. They've done a great job. And I hope that they'll be going out to Orange, California for the final, we sit in front of the commission. They granted your next 4 years. We know we're going to go that route, it's going to happen. But they left telling us that we've done a remarkable job. They really didn't see any issues whatsoever, but they have one. And it talks to pensions of the employees, retainment. Because they asked, how are you going to retain the officers? When they did the interviews, some of the officers very clearly said that they will be leaving. They love the place, they love the town, but they can't, they have to look, they're young, they're growing in their lives. They want a pension system as opposed to some sort of contribution. So anyway, so that was the only thing that was noted in the report. That comes to retention. And I'm sure I'll get asked that when I go to the commission in March. But it was very successful. High marks for the town of Madison. I'm sure they're going to grant, they claim that they're going to grant us a reaccreditation advance. And again, that puts us in a small group of less than 40 departments dual in the country. So we should be proud of the work the people that we have in that building are doing. Again, I close with, I work with great people. And Doug, you're here, so I'll say thank you. Holly, thank you.
So there'll be a formal letter certification, or will be presented at the meeting in March?
That's presenting in March, but what we're going to do is I will have in about within 90 days a written report. You might recall those, they're very, very thorough. Generally, you look for something that it might be an issue. When they did the CSMs, which are the annual ones they do in December, they noted that we were checking our lockups every day. It's usually a weekly process, but because we're doing it every day, we had missed a couple of days, so they pick up on that when they do the audit. So they said just change verbiage, you're fine. You know, it's not a major issue, and they get asked that during the commission, sit down with the commission, and I'm happy to answer them.
What was the number, Chief? You mentioned 40 out of the departments across the breadth of the U.S. that we're in 40. What's the outside number? Are there 40 departments with dual out of 500, 600?
That number's changed. It's more because of police accountability throughout the country, post George Floyd. You have a lot more departments mandates for accreditation. Some have, in the state of Connecticut, they have tier 1, 2, and 3. If you are CALIA, which is the independent, then you have Connecticut tier 3 advanced. Some states pushed, I'm trying to explain this out, some states pushed to make it a mandate for CALIA. CALIA does not want you to be mandated to try and be part of that organization because it takes a lot of work. And when people go out when they try to enter it that way, they generally fail 6-8 months into it. There's probably now more, the number used to be 1,260. My guess is probably increased a large percentage. I don't know the exact number. I focus on the dual because it takes a lot of work, and hats off. We're probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest. Most of them are 60, 80 dispatchers in a room that do multiple, like 12 towns and cities, you know.
Well, when we do get it, I'm not, I'm certainly not giving you your job responsibilities, but one of the things we should think about when we do get it, Tom was getting at, it really is a significant accomplishment. And, you know, on one hand, when we're going to the town and asking for additional investments in our law enforcement and public safety, we should also, on the other hand, beat the band when we say it is paying off. This is an independent, objective certification. We don't take ads out in the Kalia newspapers to get it. This is something that is earned, and you know, I know, and certainly Tom was here when Chief set this as a goal. We actually pushed it back a year from what we planned to do, because the hill was a lot steeper and a lot higher than we thought.
And the shoes were slippery.
And the shoes were slippier. So when we do get it, you know, again, it's fine to be modest, but when we do get it, you know, let's wave the flag with someone getting a picture of accepting it, and again, explain to the public, particularly the Madison public, here's what it means and here's what it's important. You know, it does mean you can't take any shortcuts. It does mean you really have to pay attention to what the CLIA standards are. And when you get to the end of the CLIA standards, their goal is what's in the best interest of the public. And so when we get to that point, you know, I'm not sure we need the cupcakes, but we need something close to the cupcakes. So.
I was appreciative that they pointed out a lot of the strengths. And they were very, very impressed with the combination of not only the sworn officers, but you gotta remember, we kind of cast Katie Randall into that position, put her in school on the fast track. She's already recommended for the advanced school by that assessor. So I asked, is there any shortcomings? It's absolutely not. She's better than most. So, and this is somebody who's built Richmond, built Virginia Beach, built Syracuse. And was out in Utah. So that's a lot of, those are huge centers, you know, that also deal with government, military. So I was very happy for that. Again, I appreciate everybody who contributed, and the two that are in the room, Doug and Holly, thank you. There's a lot of logistics that go with that, and I couldn't have done it alone.
Okay. Next. 2025 meeting calendar is in there if people can take a look at it. I think it follows our regular second Thursday. The only other thing that I would add to it is we continue, you know, to have different travel events, and we will try to maintain our capacity to Zoom, you know, certain meetings to accommodate different commissioner schedules, whether they're available locally or not. So if there's any conflicts, please let Holly know. And if we do have something that looks like it's going to be a quorum impact, we'll see about changing it during the year. But take a look at it so we can officially sign off on that. Okay. Chief, state agencies, anything like that?
Just the, I am back on, and we had this discussion, the voting memo, racial profiling provision project, and the IMRP public policy at UConn. I have a second meetings next week. Legislation's coming back in the spring, so that's gonna probably heat up a lot what's going on. I think just some of the laws we talked about, the 43 points of reform that they have not, you know, they're still working through, I don't know, some of the interesting things they've learned along the way, I'll put it that way. We have given a conditional letter, thank you to Scott Cochran and Jeremy York for, with Youth and Family Services. We've offered a conditional letter to our social worker, who is a young lady who graduated from Southern Connecticut State University MSW program and worked with Dr. Logan, who was the pioneer of this program in the state personally. And she did an internship with the Milford Police Department, so we're happy to have her. If she accepted, she'll be starting based on how we set up with the Board of Selectmen, the funding through the grant process, and also perhaps in a year and a half ask for a full-time position. If the law mandates it, most certainly we have to. The second part is, I understand my name got submitted. I don't know if it's gonna happen to join the post council. So we'll find out what happens with that. That is through the state senate. Most certainly Senator Collin had a discussion with her. She's advocating for it, as well as Senator Bob Duff from Norwalk, who sits as the leadership. It goes to Senator Pro Tem, also Gary Winfield, Senator Winfield Mejia. They thought it would be appropriate, particularly with the size of our town. So I'll find out what happens, great, if not. And the last thing is, they did ask me to go, we have a hearing with the federal DOT in Congress at the end of March. They asked me to attend as the police chief. So I guess I end up with this little paper, who you are, and answer the questions on policing, on speed enforcement, DOT, and funds that were used in grants, things to that effect.
Well, this MSW social worker, remind me again, on our payroll, youth and family services, who will be, quote?
It's gonna be, it's in the police, they put a line in the police budget, external to the PD, but general ledger. The supervision is Scott Cochran, the Youth and Family Services. They have the credentials and they meet the criteria and will conduct her criteria to fulfill as far as case management. The grant is, we're starting halfway through, so we'll probably get a year and a half before we have to physically ask for funding for it. She's coming in at less than 30 hours a week to start. Based on our intern, when we did the project 2 years ago, we had 19 cases in 2 months. So I imagine that with great closure for folks and families. So I imagine it's going to be full-time down the road.
And is her work, her responsibilities would be the same as an internship, as the pilot program?
I'm sorry.
Is her work gonna be the same as the pilot program, is the structure?
Very similar. Very
Is
similar.
she also not going to be attending when you get calls for service? She will not attend, she will do her work
She
like
may,
after the fact?
if we're not going to put her in harm's way.
Yeah,
But there are some days she would be embedded with the police department on calls. You know, she's going to work her schedule once she gets acclimated. As the Tiffany, who was our intern, where she worked, I call them peak hours for issues based on what we do an analysis, we have peak hours.
yeah.
And she was happy to do that, and that's where she got so many cases in a short period of time. And we won't put them in harm's way, and you also remember as you do that, you know, somebody absent a uniform or gun on their head has a different reaction to somebody who's in crisis, who's sitting on a curb, who's contemplating suicide running.
Good. Well, it's been a long time coming before we got there,
Well, the government doesn't work fast.
except for the police commission. We done?
I don't have anything else to say unless you do.
Good. Commissioner comments?
Nothing?
Nothing?
Amy? We're good. Thank you. It was a productive meeting, Chief, in my opinion. We will adjourn into executive session. It'll be a brief executive session